Alright, looks like we're live. Had a little bit of delay, but we are on. Thank y'all for joining me this evening. Welcome to Live on Slow Mode. This is our 54th live stream on YouTube. Thank y'all for tuning in. If you're looking at the screen currently, got on screen the same shirt that I'm wearing, a Keybline royalty. Make sure you stop and get you one, get you a couple. They're available in different colors. Shows the depiction on the shirt, the quote-unquote king of the Moors, Mansa Musa, richest man in history, written history. So make sure you check out his history. But as y'all can see from the title of this video, the suppression, the Jews suppressing black people's, quote unquote, black people's African Moorish history. So let us get into this. Feel free to ask any questions. We provide the evidence and the references so that this information can be backed up, and we get to the nitty-gritty of the foundation. So give me a moment here as I pin a comment in the chat. Let me know if the music is too loud. Slowly getting everything working together. Let me know where y'all watching from. Drop a comment in the comment section where y'all watching from. Make sure y'all hit that subscribe button. I can't stress that enough. We are almost to 1,000 subscribers. We are 9 subscribers away from 1,000 subscribers and ultimately monetization for our YouTube channel. So I wanted to give a round of applause for us reaching our intermediate goal. We have a 1,000 subscriber YouTube video is going to be published up possibly by the end of this week, so make sure y'all stay tuned for that. And of course, you see, as y'all see, I have the lab coat on. We're in the lab and we're creating Moorish portals for y'all. So we're just compiling our information and sharing our evidence with our community. So feel free to drop any comments, whether they be positive or negative. Feel free to drop any comments. We're here to have an open discussion with our community so that we can get some more understanding of the true actual history of what's been occurring. So the suppression of the history of the black people by the Jews. So let us first go to the book Golden Age of the Moors. Let me get that up for y'all. This is impromptu, so it's off the top of the head. I don't have a list somewhere, so it's either this book or African Presence in Early Europe. So if you look here on page 10, Now I went over this in previous live streams. Excuse me, I'm still getting warmed up. Okay, we're gonna start here. Let me highlight it. Bologna, Salerno, and Paris made extensive use of Moorish scientific treatises. The translations from the Arabic provided links between Spain, Portugal, France, Italy, and England. Alfonso X promoted Moorish erudition at every opportunity. The first university of Christian Spain was founded at Valencia by Alfonso VIII in the 13th century, and the teachers employed were the Muslims and the Jews. We're going to continue on. Nearly all major universities in Europe sprung up around the same time, beginning in the second half of the 12th century right up through the 13th, a span of about 150 years, a period which coincides with flowering of Moorish science and the establishment of centers in Europe to translate Moorish treatises from Arabic into Latin. In Italy, we have Bologna, Pisa, Naples, Rome. In France, Montpellier and Toulouse. In Portugal, Lisbon and Coimbra. In England, Oxford. Now, how is this suppression of the Moorish history by the Jews? We're gonna bring up this book. If it focuses, The Spanish Inquisition by Jean Palady. So I'll probably bring that up on the screen. Check out Open Library. No. Let me just get the link from my other. Just bear with me a moment. Just getting the link really quick. Okay. For some reason I can't find it on so this is the book. I have limited access. I'm trying to sign in. So this is a pretty big book, so I gotta go through like the rise, the growth. There's different volumes of it. But
for the home is recorded on two separate tracks, each one giving special emphasis to certain sections of the office, as heard from those positions. When played back simultaneously on two separate systems, the sounds are blended together to achieve a new dimension of sound impossible to obtain in a monaural recording.
Getting everything organized for y'all. Trying to see the comments if I get any. Okay. That looks better. Okay. Dang. Missing one more book. One more book. Dang. Missing Moses and monotheism. Let's see if I can pull it up on archive. Alright, hopefully it pulls up and I'll have to sign in. Moses and monotheism. Yes, this is. Okay, great. So this ties into the origin of Judaism, ties into the origins, the teachings by Amenhotep IV, which was a pharaoh in ancient Egypt. Kemet, dark-skinned, swarthy African, creating the concept of monotheism. So, if we're going to talk about Judaism and the Jews suppressing African Moorish history, we have to go to the origin of the teachings of monotheism. So let's start right here, page 34. We're going to start right down here. A strange fact in the history of the Egyptian religion, which was recognized and appraised relatively late, opens up another point of view. It is still possible that the religion Moses gave to his Jewish people was yet his own, an Egyptian religion, though not the Egyptian one. In the glorious 18th dynasty, when Egypt became for the first time a world power, a young pharaoh ascended the throne about 1375 BC, who first called himself Amenhotep IV, like his father, but later on changed his name. And not only his name, this king undertook to force upon his subjects a new religion, one contrary to their ancient traditions and to all their familiar habits. It was a strict monotheism, the first attempt of its kind in the history of the world. As far as we know, and religious intolerance, which was foreign to antiquity before and for long after, was inevitably born with the belief in one God. But Amenhotep's reign lasted only for about 17 years. Very soon after his death, in 1358, a new religion was swept away, and the memory of the heretic king proscribed from the ruins of his new capital, which he had built and dedicated to his God, and from the inscriptions in the rock tombs belonging to it, we derive the little knowledge we possess of him. Everything we can learn about this remarkable, indeed unique person is worthy of the greatest interest. Everything new must have its roots in what was before. The origin of Egyptian monotheism can be traced back as far distant with some certainty. In the school of the priests in the Sun Temple of Et-Un, Heliopolis, tendencies have for some time been at work developing the idea of universal God and stressing his ethical aspects. Ma'at, the goddess of truth, order, and justice, was a daughter of the sun god Re. Already under Imhotep III, the father and predecessor of the reformer, the worship of the sun god was in the ascendant, probably in opposition to the worship of Amun at Thebes, who had become overprominent. An ancient name of the sun god Atum was rediscovered, and in his Atum religion, the young king found a movement he had no need to create, but one which he could join. Okay, so this is the origins of the teachings of monotheism. Now, Sigmund Freud was a Jewish. Sigmund Freud is the father of psychoanalysis, and he was also a Jewish Freemason. As you can see here, Sigmund Freud was a secular Jew who identified strongly with his heritage, actively participating in the Jewish fraternal organization B'nai B'rith, Sons of the Covenant in Vienna, often described in literature as a form of Jewish Freemasonry. Okay? So how does this tie into African Moorish history not known to the blacks or being suppressed to the black people? Okay, so we have this book. Let's see if y'all can see the tags. The Gift of Kabbalah by Tamar Frankiel, PhD. So let's look at that. Let's see if I can put it on the screen. So this is the book title. Get you a snippet. I doubt that this would be on archive. Yep, unavailable. See, that's the thing with archive and scribe and everything. A lot of these websites, they lack the prints for the books, so I can't really show you all the inner contents of the book on screen because it's not uploaded to these sites. But what I wanted to show was the connection to the Kabbalah by way of the same origins being that Egyptian, and I'll show you. So if we go to Acrobat Reader, if y'all see on the screen, we're looking at the book The Tree of Life by Dr. Muada Ashby. Let me bring that over here. Okay. Tree of Life by Dr. Muada Ashby. Y'all just seen the spherite or Tree of Life. We've went over this before though. So on page 21, you have the two tree of life side by side. Anunian theology, you have Ra here, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, ASAR, Aset, Set, Nebathet, and Haru-Ur. To the right, you have the Kether, Benai, Chokmah, Gebura, Chest, Tiphareth, Had, Netzach, Yesod, and Malkuth. Okay? So these two concepts are identical. However, this one on the left, the African Moorish one, is centuries, possibly millennia older than this. Okay? Above left, figure above left, the tree of gods and goddesses of Anunian theology. Above right, the tree of life of the Kabbalah. So we're going to break this down. We're going to read through the a little bit of the foreword. This will give y'all some context, and I can also cross-reference as well. So on page 17, this book is about the ancient Egyptian concept of the tree divinity and the unique philosophy of the Tree of Life spiritual system for promoting spiritual evolution to enable human beings to attain spiritual enlightenment. We need to clarify that the Tree of Life that is the subject of this book is not from the ancient Egyptian religion and is not associated with Judaism or the Kabbalah. Rather, there is some evidence that these religious systems may have taken some elements from the ancient Egyptian tradition of Anunian, from the city of Anu, theurgy, in order to develop their religious systems. Theurgy, as used here, refers to the practices of ancient Egyptian religion, including its Sabbath, philosophy, priestly disciplines, rituals, wisdom teachings, metaphysics, hieroglyphic texts, and architecture related to the process of Shatat Neter, hidden mysteries, ancient Egyptian religion. Anunian theurgy emerged at least 4,000 years before the supposed date of the existence of Abraham. So that's four millennia. The reputed founder of Judaism, and at least 4,500 years prior to the existence, to the earliest evidence of the earliest known text of Judaism, of Jewish Bible. Therefore, the Tree of Life of Anunian theurgy is a far more ancient teaching and offers insights into the nature of Tree of Life mythology for all mythologists, metaphysicians, and religious study proponents. Due to the factor of greater notoriety about the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, it has been thought useful to add a further section discussing the concepts of the Kabbalistic traditions based on Jewish teachings and a brief comparative look at it, and the ancient Egyptian teaching for those who have some familiarity with the Jewish system. In this way, the rest of the book, with details the Kemetic tradition of the Tree of Life spiritual system exclusively, will be more delineated, and the special unique insights in it will be clearer to distinguish and easier to understand. Kabbalism, ancient Egypt, and the mysticism of the Tree of Life. The Kabbalah, also Kabbalah, is regarded as a form of Jewish mysticism. which is officially said to have originated in the 12th century CE. This date closely followed the Crusades, and it is possible that the opening up of European society due to the foreign wars allowed the stagnant living conditions of dark and medieval ages, or of the dark and middle ages in Europe, to give way to a more mystical interpretation of Jewish scriptures. Kabbalism is considered a way of approaching God directly as opposed to through the temple. The concept was that through the acquisition of special hidden and secret knowledge of divine revelation, an aspirant can achieve divine communion. The major text of Kabbalism of the time was the Book of Brightness, which came out in the 12th century. This book contained ideas about the transmigration of souls and other ideas that were alien to Orthodox Judaism. Echoing the ancient Egyptian mystics, the Kabbalists expressed a great interest in mysticism and cosmology. Kabbalists believe that the Jewish scripture, the Torah, contains the knowledge of all creation, and every word is interpreted according to the precise principles, and that meditation upon the word would leave the state of mind wherein the mediator will attain cosmic vision of the divine self. Kabbalism also contained elements of Messianism, and later was influenced by Hasidism. Hasidism is a partly mystical movement within Judaism. It first appeared sometime during the 18th century AC in Poland. Particularly rivalistic and partly reformist, it is considered as a reaction against the rigid, legalistic Jewish orthodoxy. It was founded by Israel ben Eliezer. Like the philosophy of the Kabbalists, he emphasized direct communion with God and awareness of His presence in all creation. In Hasidism, worship is a part of all ordinary activities of person's daily life. In Hasidism, the tzaddikim leaders as Hasidistic communities are viewed as intermediaries between the people of God. I'm gonna skip down here to page 18. Since the Jewish Bible states that its patriarch Moses was knowledgeable in the teachings of the priesthood of ancient Egypt, it is plausible that the relations between the early Jews and the priests of Anu influenced the development of Judaism in the time period of the first millennium, the years 800 BC to 300 BC. Okay? Thus, it would be no surprise if there were several fundamental principles in Judaism and consequently Kabbalism that would correlate to the Anunian doctrines of religious practice. But we may know here that the period of the early interaction during the formative years of Judaism is more than 1500 years before the formation of the first Kabbalistic texts. However, ancient Egyptian religion was still in practice until Orthodox Christian religion under the direction of the Catholic Emperor Flavius Theodosius, 347 CE through 395 CE, decreed that all non-Christian religions should be stopped by force and proceeded to carry out that decree. Okay, so we're getting to Theodosius and Justinian around that period of them closing the Library of Alexandria, burning down the Library of Alexandria, as we discussed in the previous live stream. The destructions of black civilization by Chancellor Williams, Stolen Legacy by Joe Augustus Rogers. But we're showing the connection the suppressing of African Moorish history by the Jews over the black people. So now let's see here. Matter of fact, I got a couple of books that I can show. Let me pull up some more. Just pull up some more books. Pull up some more books. All right. Where are you at? So this book we got. Let me show you all the title. The Jews and Moors in Spain by Rabbi Joseph Kruskov, 1887. Now this is impromptu, so I'm just cross-referencing the evidence. I don't think I have my highlights in here. Okay. Yeah, I don't have my highlights in here, so let me get... They be deleting books, so... You gotta, keep your highlighted ones separate. On websites like Scribd and Everin, I noticed that a lot of the books that I've previously read have been missing, come up missing. For example, the Comedic Tree of Life that I just showed you, that book is no longer available on Scribd or Everin. Somehow it came up missing. So I got this book here. Y'all can't see it on the screen, but I'm trying to look at my references. So this Jewish rabbi, Joseph Kruskov, knows what a Moor is. But in this book, more than 100 years ago, he wants to not connect it to dark-skinned swarthy, okay? So if you see here on page 48, he says, "Before us stands a typical Moor. His person is well informed. He has an oval face, aquiline nose, long and arched eyebrow, nearly meeting large, restless black eyes, smooth skin, clear olive complexion, full dark hair and a beard, and an elastic springy step. His head is covered with a green woolen cap of cylindrical form from which hangs a blue tassel." Do you see here? Blue tassel, dark swarthy skin, olive complexion. Okay, that is that is the description of an African Moor. This rabbi already knows this. So why the suppression? Why is the Jewish Holocaust always brought up, but not the Ma'afa or the Spanish Inquisition or the Inquisition or the Crusades against the Moors and Jews or so-called blacks? Why is that not brought up? Why is the history of the Spanish Inquisition, the Inquisition and the Crusades not brought up, inclusive with the transatlantic slave trade for the black people? Why is this not brought up? Why are the black people not able to connect with the African Moorish history? Why are the Jews benefiting from the sciences that they learned and acquired from the black people, so-called black people or African Moors? The same knowledge that they're preserving in their religion is not being credited to the so-called black people. Why are they pretending that the so-called black people, previously called African Moors, were educating the Jews and gave them the science of medicine, science of medicine, of law? So if you see here on page 53, I'm going to start down here. The extreme northern part of Africa brought their armies to a sudden halt. Here they encountered two strong foes. First, the people called Berbers, quote, the noble, end quote, a tall, noble-looking race of men, active, high-spirited, and indomitable. They had the same patriarchal habits, the same Shemitic features, were equally skilled in the use of arms and the breeding and handling of horses, and so the Arabs believed them to be of their own race. Okay? So, if you scroll here to continue, let's continue reading. This North African coast of Africa has been called by the Romans from the dark complexion of his people. By the Romans for the dark complexion of their people. Mauritania. And this people were called Moriscos or Moors. Why are y'all pretending that the black, so-called black people in the Western Hemisphere and in the diaspora are not the Moors? You have here Moriscos and Moors. Why are you pretending that the African Moors didn't educate the Jews? And why are the Jews not connecting the blacks to their African Moorish ancestry? This is a rabbi who wrote this book. This isn't my opinion. This is the evidence that was recorded 150 years ago by a professor. Okay? Now, okay, you see here, right? We have this on the screen, right? Now let us go to Jean Pilaty. Jean Pilaty, the Spanish Inquisition. So this is the Jews and Moors in Spain. This is the Spanish Inquisition. Let me see my screen if y'all can see me. Okay? The Spanish Inquisition. If it is zoom in, whatever. Jean Pilaty, right? Let's go to Morisco. If it lets me show it. So let's go back to let's see here. Where am I at? Gift for Kabbalah. Okay. We're gonna go back here. Let's go Spanish Inquisition. Hopefully it lets me search for Morisco, because I don't know where it is. Okay. Okay, I guess I'll start from a little bit of this page, but let me see if I can find it in here. Since I'm not logged in. Better yet, let's go to the index and look for the word Morisco, because it's all throughout the book, and I want to give her definition because she cites legum doctors in here. So this is history. Legum doctors, if you look through all her references, all you see is LLDs. So this happened in history. And people can't say that it didn't happen because it did. Alright, so I'm going to start from page 95. It isn't shown in the screen, but if y'all bear with me, I'll give some more context. Okay? So page 95 of The Growth of the Spanish Inquisition by Jean Pahlavi. It is hardly to be expected that the Moors who have been forced to accept baptism should have been any more free from the suspicion of reverting to their old religion than were the Jews. The zealous officers of the Inquisition needed victims, and the Moriscos provided as productive a source as did the Morenos. Okay, the Morenos are the Christian converted Jews. The Moriscos are the Christian converted Muslims. So, in 1526, certain descendants of the old kings of Granada approached Charles and asked his help against the officials of Granada, who ill-treated them and their kind in direct opposition of the treaty which had been signed at the time of the surrender of Granada. This step was the worst the Moriscos could have taken, for the commission which Charles had set up to look into these matters, and which was led by the Bishop of Cadiz, reported to Charles that the intention of the Inquisition should immediately be turned on Granada. In spite of past promises, the Inquisition was installed in that town. The familiar pattern began to take shape, beginning with the term of grace for all those who would come forward voluntarily to confess their heresy. People were now urged to commence spying on one another. It was not necessarily for Moriscos to perform actions which obviously proclaimed them to be Mohammedans, such as observing the fast of Ramadan or circumcising their children, praying with faces turned to the east, or indulging in baths. They could be condemned for abstaining from eating the pork and the drinking of wine. Now we're on page 96. or for staining their nails with henna, or singing Moorish songs, dancing Moorish dances, refusing to eat animals which had died a natural death, or even because of the way they slaughtered animals for food. Okay? So, mind you, let's stick on that part, right? Let's stick right there, because if we go to the book, circumcision, right? So let's go to the book by the Greek philosopher Herodotus. Yeah, let's go to Herodotus. So hold on to that, because we are looking at. Hang on, let me put the page here so that y'all can see. So the thought of circumcision. If it loads, what is going on? Okay, here we go. So circumcision. Here we go. 104 histories. Let me give y'all the title. The Histories of Herodotus by Herodotus, translated into English by G.C. Macaulay, in 2 volumes. Volume 1. I think this book 2 though. Yeah, this is book 2. 1. Book 2, 104. Alright, we're going to read this part right here. So it says, "For the people of Colchis are evidently Egyptian, and this I perceived for myself before I heard it from others. So when I had come to consider the matter, I asked them both. And the Chaldeans had resemblance of the Egyptians, more than the Egyptians of the Chaldeans." I'm having trouble pronouncing that. But the Egyptians said they believed that the Chaldeans were a portion of the army of Sesostris. That this was so, I conjectured myself, not only because they were dark-skinned and have curly hair. This of itself amounts to nothing, for there are other races which are so. But also still more because the Chaldeans, Egyptians, and Ethiopians alone of all the races of men have practiced circumcision from the first. Okay? It's still African in origin. Circumcision is African. So the practice in Judaism comes from Africa. The Phoenicians and the Syrians who dwell in Palestine confess themselves that they have learned it from the Egyptians and the Syrians about the river of Thermodon and the river of Parthenios and the Macronians who are their neighbors. Say that they have learned it lately from the Chaldeans. These are the only races of man who practice circumcision, and these evidently practice in the same manner as the Egyptians. Of the Egyptians themselves, however, and of the Ethiopians, I am not able to say which learned from the other, for undoubtedly it is most ancient custom. It is a most ancient custom, but that the other nations learned it by intercourse with the Egyptians. This, among others, is to me strong proof, namely that those of the Phoenicians who have intercourse with the Hellas cease to follow the example of the Egyptians in this matter and do not circumcise their children. Okay? So let us continue here. but now let's go to Moses and monotheism. On circumcision. So this is 3 books. Where am I at? Okay, hang on. Where's the Adobe Reader? I don't see it. Hang on. Trying to bring back the Adobe Reader. Okay, Jews and Moors. Alright. Hang on. I want to do a Moses and monotheism. Let's see. No, that's the wrong one. Okay. Where's Moses? Okay, it's right here. Okay, circumcision. Because I believe, hang on, my screen is a little, it's a little dark right now. I don't know if it was this book or, okay, here we go. Okay, so if you see here on page 48, let me get my screens right. Okay, I'm just leave that alone. Okay, so on page 48 of Moses and Monotheism by Sigmund Freud, we see here the motivation that we have surmised for the Exodus as a whole covers also the institution of circumcision. We know that in what manner human beings, both peoples and individuals, react to this ancient custom. Scarcely any longer understood. Those who do not practice it regard it as very odd and find it rather aberration. But those who have adopted circumcision are proud of the custom. Herodotus. So, where's that note at? Note 1. Haremheb right there. Nope, wrong one. Hang on. It's on this side. Calling him if he need a custom, isolate them, prevent them from entering foreign peoples that do it. Just as the Egyptians had kept apart from all foreigners, Herodotus, who visited Egypt about 450 BC, gives in his accounts of his travels as characteristic of the Egyptians, which shows an astounding similarity with well-known features of the later Jewish people. Quote, they are in all respects much more pious than other peoples. They are also designated from which by many of their customs, such as circumcision, which for reasons of cleanliness they introduce before others. Further, by their horror of swine, doubtless connected with the fact that Set wounded Horus when in the guise of a black hog. And lastly, most of all, by their reverence for cows, which they would never eat or sacrifice because they would thereby offend the cow horn Isis. Therefore, no Egyptian man or woman would ever kiss a Greek or use his knife, his spit, or his cooking vessel, or eat of the meat or otherwise clean ox that had been cut with a Greek knife. In haughty narrows, they looked down on the other peoples who were unclean and not near to the gods as they were. End quote. After Urban, the Egyptian religion, page 181, etc. Okay, page 50. Jewish tradition, however, behaved later on as if it were oppressed by the sequence of ideas we have just developed. To admit that circumcision was an Egyptian custom introduced by Moses would be almost to recognize that the religion handed down to them from Moses was also Egyptian. But the Jews had good reasons to deny this fact. Therefore, the truth about circumcision had also been contradicted. Okay? So, now, going back to Jane Pallady. Haven't had a chance to look at the comments if I have any. If we have any, no comments, that's okay. That's okay because this is all eternal and we have more information to share. So, these customs were listed for the use of inquisitors and those who must spy for them. New laws were made for the Moriscos, that is, Christian converted Mohammedans or Muslims, or Moors that were converted to Christianity. They must leave their doors open when they were celebrating weddings or on feast days, so that at any moment a spy could mingle with them to discover if they were following any custom which would make it necessary for them to be brought before the inquisitors. There must be no wearing of Moorish garments. Arabic must not be taught or used. At every birth, a Christian midwife must be in attendance. These new laws sent stutters of alarm through the Morisco population. They had a terrible example of the Jews before them. They had the terrible example of the Jews before them, excuse me. They called together their leading citizens as it was agreed to offer Charles 80,000 ducats if he would withdraw the edict. So this is a contradiction. I'm going to address this issue right here. These new laws sent shudders of alarm through the Morisco population. They had the terrible example of the Jews before them. So this is somewhat true, somewhat false, because the term Moor goes back possibly 1,500 years before Morisco was created. So before the term Morisco was created, there was still mauros, Mauri in Greek and Roman before Morisco was created. So etymologically, Morisco traces back to Mauros still. We already know that the first Moors were the North Africans, according to the Greeks and Romans. So, now y'all may be wondering, okay, hang on. Let me bring up another book for y'all so that I can tie the glue together so that you all can see. Hang on. Alright, about to change the screen. About to change the screen. Give me one moment. Let me exit out of that. Now we're on the book. We're on the book From Babylon to Timbuktu. Everything looking good. From Babylon to Timbuktu. A history of ancient black races, including the black Hebrews. Rudolph R. Windsor. Okay? Now there's a quote in here I wanted to go to. If I can remember the page, because if y'all see here, these pages are photographed. So in order for me to search for the word, I can't do it. So I have to go through. And plus, I don't have any highlights of it, so I can't just go through here and find the source of what it is that I'm looking for. I probably have to look through my sources. Hang on. Now this is when I have to go to my Twitter account, and I'm pretty sure I probably posted it in the past. Alright, here we go. Found it. Alright. So on page 121, so I wasn't that far away, of the same book. So if you can see here, page 21, I'm going to start right here. The final dispersion of the black Jews of Africa. Alright, so I'm going to start right up here. You know what? I'm gonna read this whole. We're going to start from page 120. So, the West African Jews during the slave trade. Alright? The black Jews who migrated to the Sudan from the north converged with the Jews migrating to the east from the eastern Sudan to the countries of the Niger River. It is a known fact that the Jews and Judaism were in Africa 1500 years before Islam, and that everywhere the Arabs went, the Jews were there. The black Jews guided the Arabs and Moors into Spain and acted as interpreters. When the Muslims came into the Sahara, they found the black Jews stationed on all trade routes, and I can positively say that where Mohammedanism is currently prevailing in the Sudan, Judaism once had been dominant. There is much proof and still much more to be revealed by scholars that there existed prior to the slave trade and subsequent to it many Jewish tribes, colonies, and kingdoms in West Africa. The Moorish writer Leo Africanus informs us of the past existence of medieval Hebrew state called Camnuria or Canuria. Its two main cities were Camnuri, obviously its capital, and Naghira. And this state was located north of Senegal River. According to this Moorish Jew, okay, Moorish Jew, this black African Hebrew state had vanished by this time. So if y'all see here, you see the term, this phrase right here, Moorish Jew, right? So y'all see the term, y'all see it, Moorish Jew here, right? Now what does Moor mean? Okay, we got the concise dictionary of English etymology by Sir Walter Skeet. So if we go to Moor or Moorish in the dictionary of etymology, of English etymology. So we see here on page 292. On page 292, y'all can't see it because it's blurry, but I can bring it up on the screen, so let's do that. Okay. Where am I at? Okay, we're already at Babylon Timbuktu. Let's go back here. Okay. Let's get the concise etymological dictionary pulled up. I hope y'all are enjoying this live stream. This is not to bash Judaism or Jewish people. This is to address the history of the cover-up of the so-called black people in the Western Hemisphere and the diaspora. So just to show some context, just to clear up any misconceptions, let me show you all the book. So this is a different page. Okay. So let's switch the screen. So if we see here, if y'all see here on the screen, so this is a different page as opposed to unread. This is page 334. So it says right here, Moor, a native of North Africa, Latin, Greek, a Moor, Moris, Greek mauros, blackamoor, corruption of blackamoor, right? It's the same as on page 292 of the same book, but probably a different edition, right? So when let's go back. Babylon Timbuktu. So y'all seeing Moorish Jew here. So this author already knew that the Jews were dark-skinned when he says Moorish Jew. This black African Hebrew, and even the teachings of Judaism comes from Africa. So why are the Jews nowadays not are covering the history of the black people in the Western Hemisphere and the diaspora, covering up their African Moorish history, and not connecting it with the transatlantic slave trade, the Spanish Inquisition, the Crusades, and even the Punic Wars, and even the teachings of monotheism taught by Amenhotep IV, going back into ancient Africa during the mystery system. Why is this not taught? Why is this covered up? There are two main reasons given for the ruin of this kingdom. The intensive sandstorms of the Sahara Desert caused by droughts and rendered the cities uninhabitable. The migration of the Fulahs or Fulabi toward the west, the Canary called the Fulahs Fileta. These Fulahs transmigrated the entire Sudan from the Nile to Senegal. The Canary Jews are now located in central Sudan along trails hundreds of miles north, southeast, and west of Lake Chad, where they migrated from Senegal. It is the conclusion of some scholars that when the Jewish kingdom of Ghana fell, many of the Hebrew tribes established settlements among the African tribes throughout Central and Western Africa. Thus, the Moorish writer Al-Idrisi of Andalusia, Spain, wrote in the early part of the 12th century about the powerful Hebrew colony of Lamlam. Lamlam, situated about 200 miles west of Timbuktu. The Hebrew merchants were then monopolizing the trade that were concentrated at Timbuktu. Lamlam was entirely Jewish, and she fought wars to maintain her control and trade. So I can show two other books that I haven't even addressed in this live stream. So we got here The Journey of the Songhai People by Calvin Robinson, Redmond Battles, and Edward W. Robinson Jr. Now the Jews are covering up the history of the so-called black people. They're covering up the African Moorish history of the so-called black people. Now, in comparison to the Ma'afa that took place during the transatlantic slave trade and the killings of millions of Africans, millions of dark-skinned and swarthy people. Let me show the exact quote. Why is this covered up? Why do the black people not want to connect to their African Moorish history? You got Jewish scholars trying to cover up African Moorish history and this connection to the today black people. People with dark skin in the Western Hemisphere and in the diaspora. Excuse me, I'm looking for the page. I think it's in the last portion of the book. I got my notes in here, so I should be able to find it fairly quickly. Okay. So we got here page. I'm just giving more context to what I'm saying, so that y'all can see the evidence provided by experts. Okay, so on page 390, it says here, Judaism also got its, quote, one God concept, end quote, from Akhenaten, the great pharaoh of Egypt. The abstention from eating pork and other scavengers also came from Egypt. The Egyptian scientists found the creatures like the pig, crab, duck, etc. would do your body harm. Okay, so this is all ancient African concepts. Abstaining from eating pork. I can connect this with Dr. Muada Ashby's book, Egyptian Yoga, Volume 3, The Priests and Priestesses of Ancient Egypt. But I can't connect it because these websites like Everand Scribe, they take down the books. So when I try and reference the book and try to show you all, I can't reference this because I don't have a physical copy. But even if I have a physical copy, I can't show it on the screen because this is where y'all are getting the information. I can't hold it up. I can hold it up. It'll be inconvenient for me, but in order to show it to y'all like it's being shown on the screen, just like I have Moorish Jew showing here with the references to back it up, it complicates things, right? Okay, so I have to read from the book and show y'all the cross references. It's ridiculous. This is some of the suppression. Okay, so when I use terms like faggot, and it's not meant to be used as a derogatory term for homosexuals. No, the etymological meaning of faggot means a bundle of sticks. Okay, now the Jews understand this. The black people don't. They think homo means homosexual. They don't know homo means human. They see the Jews are suppressing this knowledge, the connotative, the etymological meaning of words to the black people, so that the black people are not able to connect to their African Moorish ancestry. Okay? Now this is expressed through law. This is expressed through history. Now if I bring up that the Jews were being burned to the faggots 500, 600 years ago in Europe, this is history. This is what happened. Now why is this not being discussed? Why are the Jews not bringing up to the so-called black people that the Jews and Moors were being burned to the stakes in Europe 500, 600 years ago? And when the Jews were persecuted during that same time, the Morenos were being persecuted during that same time. Torquemada had their bones dug up, and whatever writings or books that they had placed around their necks and burned with them, and their land confiscated and taken from their inheritance and from their descendants. Why are they not discussing this? But the blacks in the Western Hemisphere and the diaspora are just supposed to suffer. And the teachings that they have taught to human history in the concepts of science, mathematics, the calendar, the alphabet, etc. Why is this not being taught? Now you might be wondering, okay, where are you getting this information from? Where are you getting the Africans or the so-called black people create the alphabet from? Okay, let me show you. Let's go to the book. First of all, let me change the display. What's that book called? Okay, Negro Rulers. Negro Rulers. Alright, so I'm bringing Negro Rulers here. I'll show y'all the title of the book. Alright, so right here we got the Negro rulers of Scotland and British Isles. I went over this in the last live stream. Alright, so y'all see here on so-called page 199 of this ebook. This ebook, Unyielding Truth. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer stated, quote, all truth passes through three stages. First is ridicule, second is violently opposed, third is accepted as self-evident, end quote. He says here, at the dawn of history, the human race in waves migrated from the continent of Africa to remote regions of the earth. Those early explorers were the first to settle in Europe as well as other lands. They invented man's first tools, weapons, the art of hunting and domesticating animals, the wheel, plow, agriculture, irrigation, sculpture, drawing, painting, chess, paper, steam engines, engineering, architect, skyscrapers, pyramids, banks, post offices, etc., an achievement which the rest of the world embraced to construct its own civilizations. The Africans also invented the world's first alphabet, the concept of the universe, government, king, queen, religion, medicine, the study of anatomy, hospitals, the skill of surgery, spectacles, the textile industry, universities, metaphysics, chemistry, military techniques, navigational instruments, propellers, sea vessels, diving instruments, aeronautics, computers, philosophy, and mathematical sciences, and marvelous accomplishments that lead to the development of Western civilization. Funk and Wagnall Standard Reference Encyclopedia 24, Volume 24, Africa's Gift to America, J. Rogers. Africa, Mother and Western Civilization, Yosef Ben Yakinen, George G.M. James, Stolen Legacy. Yeah, I can show more references. Why are the Jews suppressing black people history? Why are they suppressing black people, African Moorish history, and their contributions to the rest of civilization? I just showed you. So, I can cover more. Let's see where we're at on time. So we are 1 hour 20 minutes in. That is gonna be it for this live stream. We already discussed enough for this broadcast. I can go on for 3 hours if y'all want me to, but I'll save that for future content. So I thank y'all for tuning in. We live stream every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure y'all tune in. We have some knowledge here that's able to be shared with every human on the planet. So feel free to dive in. Feel free to connect to the actual history that Google isn't going to tell you, that Bing isn't going to tell you, and that these news networks will not tell you until they show the full light of African Moorish history and that connection to the black or dark-skinned people in the world. So thank you for tuning in. Make sure y'all subscribe. We are almost to 1,000 subscribers and monetization. Be on the lookout for our 1,000 subscribe video, celebratory video coming later this week. So without further ado, I'll bid y'all farewell, and I will see y'all next time. More slow-mo, Moorish portals are on the way, so stay tuned, and we are out.